90 seconds. That's how long some headlines claim it took for an entire royal evening to unravel, with William supposedly rising from his chair and walking straight out the moment Camilla settled into her seat beside the king. It's a striking image, dramatic enough to stop anyone mid-scroll. But before accepting it as truth, it's worth asking a simple question. If something this visible happened at a formal palace gala, surrounded by photographers, security teams, and dozens of guests, why hasn't a single established royal correspondent reported it? That absence of confirmation doesn't mean nothing interesting exists in the William Camilla story. It means the real story is more layered, more historical, and frankly more human than a 90-second walkout ever could be. To understand why headlines like this spread so easily, you have to travel back to 1997, to the aftermath of Princess Diana's death, when two young boys were thrust into a nation's grief while quietly processing their own. William was 15, Harry 12, and Camilla Parker Bowles was already a familiar, complicated figure tied to their parents' troubled marriage. Biographers including Penny Junor and Robert Lacey have documented how those early years were shaped by caution rather than warmth, with William reportedly keeping emotional distance from Camilla for years afterward. That distance wasn't presented as a single explosive confrontation. It was described as a slow, guarded coexistence, the kind common in blended families navigating loss. What makes this story genuinely compelling, though, isn't a frozen moment of tension. It's the transformation that followed. Over nearly 2 decades, William's public posture toward Camilla shifted from wary tolerance to visible courtesy. Royal watchers trace this evolution through incremental moments, joint appearances at family Christmases, shared engagements, and eventually warm public gestures during major state occasions. Angela Levin, a biographer who has written extensively on Charles and the royal household, has noted that patience within the family allowed old wounds to soften rather than heal instantly. This kind of gradual repair rarely makes headlines because it lacks the drama demanded by viral content, yet it's the version supported by actual documented behavior over time. State galas, the very setting used in this dramatic headline, are actually among the most heavily documented royal events that exist. Every seating arrangement, every entrance, every handshake is captured from multiple angles by accredited photographers and reported almost instantly by outlets with dedicated royal desks. If a senior royal had genuinely stormed out the second another family member sat down, it would not require a mysterious 2 minutes ago headline to surface. It would already be front-page news across major outlets like the BBC, ITV, and established royal correspondents such as Katie Nicholl and Camilla Tominey, journalists whose credibility depends entirely on verified access, not speculation. That said, dismissing sensational claims outright without context would be its own kind of dishonesty. Royal historians and documentary teams, including those behind BBC and Channel 4 productions on the modern monarchy, have noted that formal events sometimes do reveal subtle, real signals of underlying tension. A shortened conversation, a slightly delayed greeting, a change in body language noticed by trained observers. These moments are genuine, but they're also easy to misinterpret when stripped of context. A prince stepping away to greet other guests, attend official duties, or manage the physically demanding choreography of a state event can be reframed out of context as a dramatic snub by anyone looking to manufacture outrage rather than understand nuance. It helps here to understand just how tightly choreographed these events actually are. State galas and palace dinners follow rigid protocol, with senior royals moving through carefully timed sequences involving diplomatic guests, security escorts, and ceremonial duties. Robert Hardman, whose detailed accounts of modern royal life are widely respected, has described this choreography as almost military in its precision. Within such a structure, movement across a room isn't spontaneous emotion, it's function. A member of the family rising from a table is far more likely tied to schedule, protocol, or duty than to an impulsive personal reaction triggered by who just sat down beside them. Understanding why audiences remain so invested in tension between William and Camilla requires looking beyond any single event and toward collective memory. Diana's legacy remains deeply embedded in public consciousness, and many people who grew up watching the events of the 1990s continue to view Camilla's role in the family through that emotional lens, even decades later. This isn't irrational. It reflects real, complicated feelings shared by millions who admire Diana and felt protective of her sons as they grew into adulthood in the public eye. Documentaries like Diana, in her own words, along with numerous retrospectives marking anniversaries of her death, have kept those emotions alive, creating fertile ground for narratives suggesting unresolved family conflict. At the same time, the modern royal family has worked, often quite visibly, to project unity, particularly since Charles's accession to the throne. The coronation of King Charles III in May 2023 offered one of the clearest public demonstrations of this shift, with William playing a central ceremonial role alongside both his father and Camilla, now Queen. Footage and photograph from that day, along with subsequent joint engagements, show a working relationship defined by formality, mutual respect, and shared institutional purpose. Whether personal warmth exists beneath that formality is something only the family members themselves could truly measure, but the public record shows consistent cooperation rather than confrontation. Royal watchers have also noted more subtle signs of relationship building over the years, including moments where Camilla appeared to offer guidance to William and Kate Middleton, drawing on her own long experience adjusting to relentless media scrutiny after joining the family. This mentoring dynamic, referenced in several royal biographies, suggests a relationship built less on spontaneous affection and more on shared duty and mutual understanding of what public life within the monarchy actually demands. That kind of pragmatic alliance rarely generates viral headlines, yet it may be far more representative of how modern royal relationships actually function behind the scenes. It's worth pausing to consider the broader pattern behind headlines constructed like this one. In today's attention economy, phrases suggesting immediacy, betrayal, or scandal generate significantly more engagement than calm, accurate reporting ever could. Royal family stories are especially vulnerable to this dynamic because audiences already carry decades of emotional investment, having followed these individuals since childhood through weddings, tragedies, and public milestones. That emotional history makes viewers primed to believe dramatic claims, even when those claims lack any supporting documentation. Recognizing this pattern doesn't diminish legitimate royal journalism. It simply encourages viewers to distinguish between verified reporting, thoughtful biography, and speculative content engineered purely for clicks. None of this suggests that royal family tensions are impossible, or that every smile captured on camera reflects complete personal ease. Families, even royal ones, remain complicated, and the relationship between William, Camilla, Charles, and the enduring memory of Diana is genuinely one of the more emotionally layered narratives in modern royal history. But layered complexity is fundamentally different from a sensationalized, unverified walkout designed purely to provoke outrage. The real story, supported by documented history, respected biographies, and years of observable public behavior, is arguably far more compelling than any manufactured version could be. A young man who once maintained careful emotional distance from his father's second wife has, over more than 2 decades, witnessed and participated in her transition into queen consort, standing beside her during one of the monarchy's most significant modern ceremonies. In the end, stories like this one reveal as much about public curiosity as they do about the royal family itself. We're drawn to narratives of conflict because they promise emotional clarity in lives that otherwise appear controlled, distant, and carefully managed for public consumption. But the truth, as it so often is within the House of Windsor, resists easy drama. It lives instead in slow adaptation, in duty performed despite complicated personal history, and in the quiet, undramatic work of a family learning across generations how to present unity in public even when the past remains far from simple and private. That reality, patient and unresolved rather than explosive, is ultimately the story